Hey everyone, and welcome back to Embracing Your Virtue. I'm your host, Samantha Jasmine. Today we have a special part 2 bonus footage of my last broadcast, which was Embracing Your Identity as a Wife and Mom with special guest Otillia Ford. I don't know about you guys. Have you ever just had those conversations with your girls that are just so rich? It's like you just can't seem to end it. Well, that's what happened with Otillia and myself. After we wrapped up the first broadcast, and I recommend you check it out if you haven't done so, we just kept talking on the subject, and I just had to hit that record button because it was so rich. So I hope you guys enjoy this special bonus footage where we talk about we go into more in depth about our self-care plans, the importance of meditation, faith, therapy, and all of what we've done to really unpack our identity as wives, as moms, as well as what we do to keep sane and to keep going. So please take a listen, and I hope you guys enjoy it.
Unscripted. You can't script it. You gotta let it run. You know what I mean? But I think one of the things that meditation did was allow me to say, okay, ego, get out of it. I can't sit here and value myself the way I used to. I'm not an analyst. I don't work at the big corporate place. I don't drive this car. I don't make this set of money. So now that I'm a mom, what is the value system that I have to build myself on right now?
Yeah.
And to go back and to sort of build myself back in a more authentic way,
Yeah.
right? So it's not about checking those boxes. So when, like I was, when people meet you, oh, what's your kid doing? And we always feel we got to say
Yeah.
that, oh, they're spelling this word or
Yeah.
they know their alphabet forwards and back. There's always this need for us to put this ego
Yeah.
where we're like, oh, they're doing this amazing thing. So what are you doing with your life? What do you got going on? And it's like,
Right. Right.
well, I did 5 loads of laundry.
Right.
I did 5 loads of. Do I
Yeah,
gotta go?
my kid painted a blob. I don't know
Yeah,
what he
it's like I don't know what I think I see. Oh, I think I see a
did.
cat in there, right? And so you feel like that's what you have to to sort of check off those boxes and be like, I did this and I did this and I accomplished this and I'm this type of superwoman. I'm getting it done. And it's like, no, 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 no.
Mm-hmm.
Pull it back. It got to be simpler than that.
Yeah.
My kid didn't throw a tantrum today.
Yeah. That's a win. That's a win.
Right, right.
I'm still waiting for that day. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you
Yeah.
said, it's an evolution, right? When
Yeah.
you're raising these kids. So it's like you have to then make those markers or those accomplishments. You got to bring it down.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? If your kid is potty trained, I'm glad you told me. That's a win. I'm glad you told me today. Tomorrow you may not. But I mean, so certain me meditating and getting up made me have the opportunity to peel back those layers and to ask myself really, why are you feeling insecure? What is it that you're insecure about? How, and then how do you then make yourself get out of that mode?
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
What do you have to do? Because it's only could be you. It can't be nobody else. You
Yeah.
have to get that to you. So, okay, what do you need? And that way, if there's a part of it that I need from my husband, I could then go to him and be like,
Mhm.
this is what I need from you,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
And you can have that open and honest conversation. But if you don't know what's causing that root of insecurity, if you don't know why you're feeling overwhelmed, if you don't know why you're stressed,
Yep.
because stress comes with it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you don't know why, then you can't properly ask or address the what you need to make yourself feel better. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah, absolutely. You got to take that time to process and to slow down, because I think sometimes we keep going. We just keep going and going, and then, you know, then we start reacting to
Right.
things that we shouldn't, and then sometimes you get to a point where you're like, okay, now I'm snapping on my husband, I'm snapping on my kids, and you know,
Overreacting.
right, right, and all
Yeah.
these other things come up, and then it's like now there's so much other collateral damage you have to deal with
Yeah.
before you even get to like the root of what's going on.
So what year did you feel like you were like, I got, I don't got this. Like I'm overwhelmed and something's not working.
I think for me, what year was that? Maybe I was pregnant with Tori. So that was probably like 2.5 years into being a stay-at-home mom. Nathan was 3, Olivia was like 1, and I was pregnant with my third child.
Oh,
And
Sam, speak on it.
I mean, and then like I got into one of the worst altercations with my husband ever.
Hmm.
It was all me. It was all me. Like just
Was it a pressure
um
cooker? Because did you? What was the buildup?
right. I think so. It was a lot of things, right? Like there
Hmm.
it was hormonally, like I'm pregnant, and I'm
Right.
just not a nice pregnant person. That's just just not.
Who is? You're carrying another
Yeah,
human being.
yeah. I'm like hormonally, I was crazy, right? Like not crazy, but I was, I was like medically hormonally imbalanced,
Right. Right. Right.
which is probably like 70% of the cause, right? I
Hmm.
also was not sleeping, like
Ah,
I had a 1-year old. Like I think we probably just my kids didn't start all of my kids didn't start sleeping through the night consistently until around 1.
gotcha.
And then even then they go through these phases, right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
then like I was very much pregnant, so I was like uncomfortable not sleeping through the night, like the whole thing. So physically there was just a lot going on for me.
Hmm.
And then it was like we were on vacation with my family, so just add on that stress.
Never mind. No,
Yeah.
nothing else to add to that.
Like, yeah, after like a 20-hour car ride to Orlando. So all those things happening for me. But I think it was like a buildup of something bigger, right? Like
Hmm.
I just snapped, right? And I was to say I was unkind to my husband is an understatement, right?
Hmm.
But it was to the point where he was just like, you need to get some help. Like you
Hmm.
need to get a handle on yourself, right? And I was like, you're right. So I started seeing a mental health counselor.
Hmm.
And when I started to see her, like she began to just because I wasn't putting it together. Like I wasn't putting together the fact that like, I thought I was literally crazy, right? I thought
Right.
I literally like had problems, right? And then she's like, so your body's doing this.
Hmm.
In these pressure cooker circumstances.
Hmm.
You're not sleeping. You have these 3-year-olds. She later diagnosed me as being highly sensitive. So she's like, so your nerve system is going off the chain because
Hmm.
like your kids are loud, there's all these other circumstances. She was like, no wonder, right?
Right.
So she began to first help me put like systems in place to like address my environmental challenges, right?
Right.
So she's like, how are you eating? How are you sleeping? Let's work on that. Healthy eating, healthy sleeping. Let's work on exercise. Let's work on getting you some time to yourself. Let's work on you finding, because I was also saying like even spiritually, like church for me with little kids, I'm like
You wasn't getting nothing.
I spent most of the time in the hallway,
Yeah.
letting them run up and down because it was like they wouldn't sit still. They're being kids, little kids.
Yeah.
So she's like, okay, well, let's find you a midweek Bible study that you can
Hmm.
go to, right? And then I was
Hmm.
like, okay, I found one of those moms groups
Hmm.
that meets and they had childcare.
Hmm.
So I got plugged into a community of people. It wasn't even my church, but they were believers and they're great. I still go there with them.
Hmm.
And like so she's like, let's start. It was really just like a holistic self-care plan
Right.
that she
Right.
put together. And then once we got those things established, then it became the conversations of like, let's explore, you know, um, let's explore your childhood. Let's explore all these other things that,
Right.
can be roots of whatever else is going on.
Hmm. Hmm.
So first things first, she was like, we just need to, your environment is a mess and we need to
Hmm.
get that together.
Hmm.
And then we begin to kind of explore that, which was really helpful, right? And just exploring patterns of thinking and patterns of behavior and where those things come from.
Yep.
And I think once my environment, and it's not to say that my environment was automatically stable, right? Because then I had my third child and then you have to go through the nursing and the everything else all over again. So
Hmm.
it was peaks and valleys, but at
Hmm.
least I knew like what I could do, what I needed, like ways that
Right.
I can work back towards some semblance of self-care
Mm-hmm.
as I got through those newborn phases. And
Mm-hmm.
also, I would bring my husband into my therapy, and like, she would kind of coach the both of us on like how to have a plan, right?
Right.
For self-care. And so once I had those things down, and I wasn't constantly just like scrambling all the time, you
Mm-hmm.
know, to find a minute, and I had designated time to myself, which included weekly therapy.
Mm-hmm.
I was able then to have that time, just like you were saying in your meditation, but to have that time to reflect on where are these things coming from,
Right.
right? Like what's causing the triggers, what's causing these feelings, where are they coming from, are they based off of, and I begin to realize like, oh man, I'm basing this off of like some worldly standard, right? And I'm like,
Correct.
what does the word of God say? Or I'm
Mm-hmm.
basing this off of family pressure, and like, how do I pull myself away from that? All these things.
Mm-hmm.
So sorry, it was a very long-winded answer, but like that's, so but first I had to just, yeah, so it took time to get to a place where I had time to think about it, but once I
Right.
got there, I was really grateful that I did.
Because I mean, for me, it did take, like you said, 2 or 3 years to
Mhm.
sort of be able to get over that hump.
Mhm.
And I think sometimes we try to rush the process.
Yeah.
And, oh my God, I just got to get over this. And it's like, no, you just got to
Yeah.
work through it. And sometimes it takes a minute to work through all the different components of it, right?
Yeah.
Because it's never just one thing. And so
Mhm.
I realized that there are certain things that even with before I got married or before I had a kid, I had certain habits of
Mhm.
dealing with or not dealing
Yeah.
with things. And so there's the ability to build and build and build until it's like a pressure cooker situation. And then I explode. And it's like, where's this coming from?
Right.
Because this is the first time you said something to me. Oh, I've just been swallowing this time
Right.
after time and not expressing it. So there's a whole lot of habits and ways that I dealt with things emotionally that I had to unlearn.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And I think that's one of the major things that I think prayer, faith, and meditation has done is how to unlearn
Yeah.
those worldly ways of dealing with things,
Yeah.
right? And being able to be like, okay, the only way through this. And for me personally, going to friends or family to get their thoughts and opinions was a no,
Yeah.
in my book, because I've always been a sort of private person. So
Mhm.
whatever I'm dealing with, I'm like, if I can't talk to God about this, or you're not a professional,
Mhm.
ah, you're going to be advising me from a flawed space as well,
Mhm.
right? Some people are good, that's fine. But I
Mhm.
think that for me, I felt more comfortable dealing with it myself and sort
Mhm.
of working through it through prayer and meditation. For others, it's therapy. And I think that if I had availed myself of it, maybe the process would have been not as long,
Uh,
or it could have been, but
yeah.
right. But I think when you find yourself in that space, when you find yourself feeling um, not as valued or insecure. And again, this is not because my husband made me feel like I wasn't
Right.
worthy
Yeah.
or worthwhile, because it was like, you're such a great mom. He never fails to tell me that he's so happy. Look how Gabby's flourishing and all that. He's never not. It was just my personal insecurity.
Mhm.
And so I had to do the hard work of
Yeah.
delving into why. And so for me, going through the prayer, going through meditation, talking to God on a regular basis is something that helped
Mhm.
100%.
Yeah.
So I think you have to figure out which path works for you,
Yeah.
but you got to do something.
Yeah. And I don't think it's one or the other, because for me it's both.
Right.
It's been both. So it's, I think therapy has been a space for me to, because I'm an external processor, right?
Mm-hmm.
I need to kind of like talk to think. Like, it's like, it's been a place for me to kind of like, wow, I'm saying these things out loud. It's hard
Yep.
for me to like understand what's happening, right? Like
Yep.
a lot of times I'm like, I'm having revelations myself the
Yes.
more I talk. So it's been that for me, but I think the Bible has been instrumental in reshaping some of the negative thought patterns that I have.
Mm-hmm.
Like in Romans 12, it says, "Don't be conformed to this world, but
Yep.
be transformed by the renewing of your mind," right?
Mm-hmm.
And like realizing that so much of my identity was built on success and titles, and so much of my time was spent trying to be valuable in those ways,
Mm-hmm.
and then in my current Bible study group, we're reading Philippians 3, um, where Paul is like, listen, if anybody had a reason to brag, it was me. And
Yes.
he's like, I was this, I was that, I was a
Mm-hmm.
Pharisee, I
Mm-hmm.
grew up here, like, but he says, but I don't, and it all means nothing.
It's good.
Um,
Yeah. To him,
but
he's like, it's refuse. It's like
right,
garbage. What's the
right,
point?
right, yeah.
Right.
He's like, he was like, it's all garbage
Mm-hmm.
compared to the knowledge of having Christ, right?
Mm-hmm.
And realizing that my identity is not like my value is not built on anything that I could earn or anything
Right.
that I can do, right? Because even in that, like when you have your kids who are imperfect beings, there's a temptation to want to build your identity around how well you parent.
100%.
Right. And you begin to define how well you're doing by your kids, right?
Yes.
And I mean, and that's a whole nother,
That's a whole nother. Oh my
that's a
goodness.
whole nother podcast, right?
Yeah.
But then you realize like, oh no, like I am loved, I am
Right.
valued simply because God is, right? Because
Yeah.
he says so, because he made me, and that's it. And there's nothing I can do to earn it.
Right.
There's nothing I can do to like, so I'm like, if the holy God of the universe, right, like the
Mm-hmm.
best person in the world loves me and thinks
Mm-hmm.
that I'm great, not because I do anything, but simply because then like what am I like, not that we should not work hard, but like
Right.
what am I really striving for here? Like,
Right. Right. What is my definition of that success?
right.
Right. And I think it's one of those things where you have to redefine it for yourself.
Yeah.
What my individual success would mean.
Hmm.
Right. Not what society's version of success looks like. Right.
Yeah.
And so I think there's where you have to take the ego out of it, that you which you just touched on, where you're like, I'm marking me being a good parent and being a stay-at-home mom by how well my kid is doing, but they're still spitting up bubbles when
Right.
this kid here is doing their ABCs forwards and backwards. Does that mean like I'm not doing this thing right?
Yeah.
Right. So you're then trying to make them into something that they're not purposed to do, right?
Right.
Because it goes back to me then redefining my purpose or finding it,
Hmm.
right? Because before kids and marriage, oh, it was their money and being successful, whatever, and then you get away from purpose. Well,
Hmm.
what did God put me on this earth to achieve? What is
Right.
his will for me and for my life, right?
Mhm.
And so then this helped me get back to that question. I'm here right now,
Mhm.
and I'm in this transition, and I feel like you put me in this transition for a reason, for
Yeah.
me to get to my authentic self and for me to find my purpose. I need you to show it to me. I
Yeah.
need you to show me what it is. And gradually it started getting clearer and clearer. And it was like, wow, I was so off base.
Yeah.
So far gone. But I think parenting and becoming a parent is why I'm so grateful for my daughter, because I think she opened up the pathway for me to ask those questions. Because I
Yeah.
think without her, um, I would have still been on that other road,
Yeah.
which was not of service to
Yeah.
anything, right? It's
Yeah.
like, what are you doing to be of service? What are
Mm.
you contributing to this thing called humanity?
Right.
And how are you doing God's will on
Mm.
an everyday basis, right? And
Right.
so I think that having the desire to make sure that I parent her
Mhm.
correctly, so that she can be in her purpose and find her purpose and do what it is that he has called her to do.
Yeah.
I needed to clear up my mess.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And
Hmm.
so that was part of the journey
Yeah.
to being, get out of that space and figure out what my worth, my value, and all that is now,
Yeah.
because I wanted to move that stuff aside so I don't somehow um, give it to her.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
I don't pass it on to her.
Yep.
You know what I
Absolutely.
mean? So I think there's that was part of the desire to be like, okay, I need to figure this thing out before I pass on the wrong message.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And I think something touching on when you talked about like being of service, right? And like what are
Hmm.
you contributing and giving? This is something I posted about on my Instagram last week. Just in thinking about like even Black History Month, right?
Right.
I think when I was a kid, I always kind of had this thought of like, or this desire to be like this really big person, right?
Hmm.
um and wanting even to make a change, like, I want to be like, I want to be like a MLK figure, like I
Hmm.
want to be the one kind of leading the charge for change.
Hmm.
um and it doesn't mean that I can or won't, right? But I think part of even reassessing who I was and being okay with that, there was this like this grieving process of like, oh, I'm not leading, you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
I'm not leading in that way.
Right.
Like I'm
Right.
I'm not out there kind of making policy changes. I'm not out there,
Hmm.
organizing the marches.
Hmm.
I think I got to go to like one Black Lives Matter march, because I'm like, I got three little kids,
Good kids.
you know
Yeah.
and even that, it was like, okay, so I need to be kind of prepared for the fact that something could go down, and like, am I okay with that? And
Right.
am I okay if I get arrested, and what does that mean? And so like all those things kind of go through your mind, and like I went through a period of grief and feeling like, man, like I'm not making the kind of change that I thought I would, or in the way that I thought I would.
Right.
And then I realized that raising an emotionally and spiritually healthy Black child is a major contribution to our culture, right?
100%.
Like, being able to do that is not like, that's not a small thing, you know?
Right. Right. And
Um,
we're changing we're breaking generational curses,
right.
or whatever you call it,
Yeah,
because here it is that, going back to the fact that we're stay-at-home moms, we didn't see that before.
exactly. Yeah.
Our kids are getting the best of us spending times or whatever, but
Mhm.
that's something that has changed because I see more of us also,
Yeah.
just, not um but it says that the narratives are
Hmm.
changing as
Yeah.
well. And so I think, like you said, raising emotionally stable and productive kids who are going to contribute. I don't care if you're digging a ditch.
Hmm.
If you're a good citizen and you're hardworking and you're doing your best,
Right.
kudos.
And I think also too, like, not underestimating like the the smaller things that need to happen, right? Like when
Yeah.
you think about a Selma, a march on Selma, right? You
Hmm.
think about, well, how many people had to walk around? You think about the people that had to walk around giving out flyers, the people that
Hmm.
had to organize to get people, the people who were making phone calls to say, "This is what we're gonna do tomorrow." You know
Hmm.
what I mean?
Hmm.
Think
Hmm.
about the bus boycotts, right? You think about all the women who maybe they didn't organize it, but they still walk to work every day.
Every day for like a
Every
year.
day. Yeah. You know what I mean? You think about the people that had cars that carpooled so that some people didn't have to walk. And I think like I realized I can't underestimate the day-to-day contributions that we are making.
Hmm.
Um, just because we're not the public figures doesn't mean that we are not part of change, and that
Right.
we're not part of that we're not contributing to something bigger and greater. Um,
Right.
and just even like you said, like just being able to be a class parent, I'm like, I don't remember any class parents in my, when I was a kid growing,
Not one.
or maybe one, if just that. But I'm
Not
like,
one.
I don't remember any of that. So I'm like, just being able to be on the PTA, being able to be a class parent, being able to share the information that with another mom at
Right.
the playground, or
Yes.
as you're walking to school, and be like, oh, why don't you call here and do that? Is contributing and is significant.
Yes.
And I think that I had to learn not to underestimate those things.
But I also think, like you said, I don't know where it's going to end. It
Right.
may not have anything to do with me. It could
Yeah.
be the next generation. It could be Nate. It could be Olivia. It could be Tori. It could be Gabby. And because of the time we spend right now, they
Hmm.
can go off and be the
Yeah.
thing that we thought was our calling,
Yes.
right? And then it's like, oh, it wasn't about me.
Yeah.
It's for them to
Yes.
be able to go do it. And look how they're doing it.
Hmm.
Way more better than I probably would have done.
Right.
But sometimes it's not it's not about you. It's later on generationally, it could be the work that you're putting in now is
Hmm.
so that person could get to where they're supposed to and make those changes and be the policy person, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And be the lawmaker and get to Congress and get to, you know, vice president, president, you
Yeah.
know, those type of
Uh-huh.
things. But it's the smaller things. So, you know, certain things that Gabby may see me do might make it cause an impression on her that later
Mhm.
on in life is the spark that takes her where she's supposed to be, right?
Yeah.
Because I know my mom having stayed home with me, like first being a stay-at-home mom for like the first 8 or 9 years of my life, it it did impact me.
Mm.
You know what I mean? My mom was that mom. She was always around. I always felt this sense of security that when I went home, my mom would be there, or she'll pick me up and drop me off at school. And there
Hmm.
was, or she'll come and take me out of school for lunch, and we'll eat lunch together. And then she'll bring me back to. She would bring me back to school though.
Yeah. The nerve of her.
But the nerve, like, oh, it's not a hooky day, mom. Come on. But those little things are memories that follows me through my
Hmm.
life, right? And it impacted me in such a way that now that being a parent, I'm like,
Hmm.
that's what I want my kid to feel.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Hmm.
That's the type of memories that I want to have. It wasn't nothing big and fanciful and great vacations somewhere, but those little lunches that
Yeah.
we had made an indelible impression upon me. So I
Mm.
think, you know, sometimes we think we have to do all these big things when it comes to our kids, but it's just those little moments,
Yeah.
honestly. And those are the things that I think now that I sort of value,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
Now that I've corrected the way I think.
Yeah.
And so those are the things that I now hold and I feel are valuable. That when we're walking home, she's like, I'm like, so what was the highlight of your day? What wasn't so good? Or whatever. And she's talking and she's telling me and da, 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 da. And I was like, those are just the little conversations and the peek into her world as to how she sees things and views the world is so amazing and awesome, right? And I get to hear it
Hmm.
firsthand. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? So those are the times where you're like, oh, I wouldn't change this
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
anything.
Well, yeah. Amen. Amen. So I've been recording all this, and now I think this is going to be another part one and two because this is all good. I have to put it in.
It's like I gotta find a way to it.
Yeah. I'm like,
Oh,
I can't give this up.
no, this listen, you know us. We used to stand there for like 2 hours, 2, 3. All right, now I gotta go.
Yeah.
I got
Yeah.
you're like now I gotta go because there's so much to unpack and
I
it's
know. I know. I know.
but
All
no,
I gotta
thank
do.
you.
No, thank you.
Thank you so much, Otillia, for joining us, and thank you all for listening. If you like what you've heard, please feel free to leave us a comment on our YouTube page, or you can also leave a rating on iTunes. Please be sure to follow us on whatever mechanism you choose to listen to, whether it's iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, YouTube, etc., so that you can be up to date on the latest coming from Embracing Your Virtue. You can find out more information. You can also check out some of my written pieces and some of my recommended resources at embracingyourvirtue.com. And please don't forget to follow us on social media. We are on Instagram and Facebook under the same name. Love you all and God bless. Bye.